ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. With the qurb, the close proximity of the Shaykh of the month of Ramadan, it without doubt befits this short visit that we have here to Trinidad, that we discuss something from the ahkam and the rulings related to Ramadan. What we're going to do, inshallah, is discuss an overview taken from the book of the great alim and imam Shaykh Abdul-Wahhāb bin Sa'di, who was the teacher of Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen. It's a small book, a small work around the ahkam fiqhiyya known as Manhaj al-Salikin. We're going to look then at the bab or the kitab the book of fasting within. The Imam, he mentions kitab al-siyam. الأصل فيه قوله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. He begins first and foremost by mentioning the book of fasting, and then he mentions الأصل فيه, that is the origin concerning it, يعني the origin concerning fasting, and fasting being wajib upon the servants of Allah Azza wa Jal is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام. All you who believe, fasting has been prescribed upon you as it was prescribed upon those who came before you لعلكم تتقون, as occurs in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 180 or 183. As far as the verse is concerned, يا أيها الذين آمنوا, it is from the first of the verses that were revealed concerning the affair of the command to fast. What should be known though is that when the verse was revealed, it was in actuality not what made fasting in Ramadan wajib. The verse when it was revealed, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. In actuality, the verse no doubt legislated fasting, but at that time fasting was optional. That is, you had the choice to fast and you had the choice to break your fast. But if you chose to break your fast, then it was imperative that you fed a poor person per day. And thus Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions أيام معدودات نعم فمن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين. That Allah Azza wa Jalla continues, whoever is sick or upon a journey, then he should fast a number of other days. And then Allah mentions وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين. Upon those who are able to fast, but choose not to, then they should pay the expiation of طعام مسكين. That is, they should pay the expiation of feeding a poor person per day. And so initially when fasting was prescribed, it was prescribed in this manner. You could fast if you wanted to fast, or you could break your fast. That is, if you chose not to keep fasting, you could do so, but you had to feed a poor person per day. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he mentioned the ayah though was abrogated, but its ruling remains for the elderly person and for the pregnant woman. Its ruling remains for the elderly person and for the pregnant woman. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla made fasting wajib upon the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. Statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the month of Ramadan, the likes of which the Quran was revealed in as a guidance for the people, and a clarification of the guidance and the criterion. The criterion, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whomsoever then from among you witnesses the month, then let him fast it. This verse abrogates the previous verse and made fasting wajib upon the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is for the one who is present and witnesses the month. But there are conditions. And Shaykh Abdul-Wahhāb he explains those conditions. He said, وَيَجِبُ صِيَامُ رَمَضَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ بالغ عاقل قادر على الصوم. He said that indeed fasting the month of Ramadan is wajib upon everyone who fulfills the following conditions. Firstly, Muslim. Secondly, baligh, that is, he is come of age. Thirdly, aqil, that is, he is of sound mind. And fourthly, qadir al-sawm, that he is able to fast. As far as these conditions are concerned, then they are of importance that we understand that these are the conditions for fasting being wajib upon the servant of Allah Azza wa Jal. The first of them he mentions Muslim. And that, ikhwan, is that the acceptability of fasting and the acceptability of Sawm revolves around a person being Muslim. But there is an issue that our scholars raise, and it is a mas'ala in actuality, it's a mas'ala usuliyya. And that is, are the kuffar mukhatabuna bifuru' al-sharia? Yani, are the non-Muslims addressed with the ahkam and the rulings of the sharia? To make that clearer, when we read in the Quran, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, يعني فما شهد منكم شهر فليصم. Whomsoever from among you witnesses the month, then let him fast it. Or the statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Establish the prayer and give the zakah. These rulings that Allah Azza wa Jalla has revealed, are they revealed only upon the Muslim? Or are the non-Muslims similarly addressed with these same verses? It is an important issue, particularly as it relates to the affair of fasting in Ramadan. Since if we say that they are not addressed with the furu' of the Sharia, then that would necessitate that fasting in its origin is not upon them. Thus, there is no problem for them to eat and drink in the month of Ramadan. But if we say that they are addressed with the same things that we as Muslims are addressed with, then that would necessitate that the kuffar, even though they do not fast by virtue of them being non-Muslims, but fasting is still upon them, and they should fast. Which would then necessitate that some of the rulings related to eating in Ramadan apply to them just as they apply to us. Mathalan, is it permissible, for example, to serve a non-Muslim food in Ramadan? If we say that they are not addressed with the rulings of the Sharia, then we would say that there is no problem to serve them food, since they are not mukhatabun bifuru' al-Sharia, that they are not addressed with the rulings of the Quran and the Sharia. But if we say that they are addressed, if we conclude that the strongest position is that they are addressed, then that would necessitate that it would not be permissible for the Muslim to serve a non-Muslim food in the day of Ramadan, yani during the time when they should be fasting. And so it is an issue that the scholars discuss on what is most correct, though there are two main positions: one, that they are not addressed with the furu' of the Sharia, and the other, that they are addressed with the furu' of the Sharia, and that is the most correct of the positions. That is, that the kuffar are addressed with the furu' of the Sharia. And from the evidences, ikhwan, that our scholars use is the likes of the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, ask the kuffar, ma salakakum fi saqar. قالوا لم نكن من المصلين ولم نكن نطعم المسكين. That Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, ask them, yani ask the kuffar yawm al-qiyamah, ma salakakum fi saqar. What is it that has caused you to enter the hellfire? They will say, لم نكن من المصلين. We were not from those who used to pray. Neither did we feed the poor. And so the The fact that they responded after understanding why they were punished, the fact that they will respond by saying we were not from those who used to pray, indicates that prayer was upon them, and therefore they were punished for not praying. And since that is the case, then that is from the clearest of the evidences that are used by the muhaqqiqun and by the stringent scholars who return back to or are stringent in terms of utilizing the evidence of the Kitab and the Sunnah, the likes of Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, the likes of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, the likes of Imam al-Shawkani, the likes of Imam Muhammad Amin al-Shinqiti from our present day scholars, and from the contemporaries, the likes of Shaykh Abdul-Aziz ibn Baz, Shaykh al-Albani, and Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen. All of them hold the position that the most correct qawl is that they are addressed, the non-Muslims are addressed with the furu' of the Sharia, which would necessitate then, as we do have some of the fatwa of the Lajna Da'ima of the Fatwa Committee of Saudi Arabia, making it or declaring it impermissible to serve food, whether to a Muslim or non-Muslim, to one who should be fasting, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, in the day, in the nahar of Ramadan. And so the affair then of the conditions of fasting, from them being that a person is Muslim, that is as it relates to the acceptability of the fast. That is, the fast is not accepted from a non-Muslim. But should they fast? Yes, they should. So he mentioned firstly, it is wajib upon every Muslim, baligh, who comes of age. Bulugh, ikhwan, our scholars mention, the coming of age occurs with one of three things with every male. Either that child or that individual has a wet dream, or he grows pubic hair, secondly, or thirdly, he reaches the age of 15. And our scholars mention that there is an additional affair with the female, and that is that she has her menses, she begins to have menses. Any one of those affairs that occur with the child, with the adolescent, then they are now of the age with the Sharia, and the rulings of the Sharia are binding upon them. They are now of age when the rulings of the Sharia are binding upon them. Either they have a wet dream, or they grow pubic hair, or they reach the age of 15, or with the female, in addition to those three, that they reach the age of menses. They begin to have menses. Any one of those things that happen, the first of those things that happen, then that child reaches the age of bulugh, and the rulings of the Sharia are now binding upon them. Now, aqil, that is, from the conditions, is that this individual should be aqil, that he should have and be of sound mind. And that is, that the actions of the Sharia are not binding upon the one who is majnoon. Since the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the majnoon, or the one who is deranged, the one who has a mental illness, then the pen is lifted from them. That is, that they are not responsible for their actions, and they are not accountable for their actions, since the pen is lifted from them. And so the one who is majnoon, or the one who is unconscious and doesn't have his aql or his faculties about him, then fasting is not wajib upon them until they regain consciousness, or until they return, or until their aql and their sound mind returns to them. And he mentioned fourthly, al-qadir al-sawm, that is, one who is able to fast. And so if it is the case that a person has an illness that prevents him from fasting, or an illness that would necessitate that he must take medication, otherwise he will become more ill, or an illness that he doesn't expect to recover from, that is, he's terminally ill, and that individual, ikhwan, does not have to fast. The one who is ill, but expects to recover from that illness, then of course they have to make qada and they have to make that fasting up. Whereas the one who is terminally ill doesn't expect to recover from his illness, then fasting is not binding upon him. And there are narrations, ikhwan, as occurs with Anas ibn Malik when he became elderly, he was unable to fast, that he would feed a poor person a day. And the manner in which he would do so is that at the end of Ramadan, as occurs in some authentic narrations, at the end of Ramadan, he would gather 30 poor people and prepare a large meal for all of them, and that would suffice for every day in Ramadan. That would suffice him. Now, then he goes on to mention بِرُؤْيَةِ هِلَالِهِ. That is, fasting becomes wajib with ru'yat al-hilal, that is, with the sighting of the moon. And that no doubt is based upon the statement of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is, if you see it, if you see the hilal or the crescent of the new month, that is the month of Ramadan, فَصُومُوا, that is, you should fast it. Or the hadith and the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, صُومُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ, صُومُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ, fast when you see it, fast when you see the moon, and break your fast, end the month of Ramadan when you see it, لِرُؤْيَتِهِ, when you see it. And thus, ikhwan, here we find the Prophet ﷺ discussed fasting and connected the affair of fasting with the ru'ya, with seeing the crescent. As far as the condition that has been laid down, then there are texts that indicate that it is sufficient that a person, that one upright individual witnesses and sees the hilal. That is, as it relates to the month of Ramadan. That one upright individual is sufficient as it relates to the ru'ya. Of course, ikhwan, every year we have the same ikhtilaf and the same difference of opinion. Do we have to see it, or is it based upon a local sighting, or will an international sighting suffice? And it is, of course, ikhwan, a legitimate difference of opinion. From Ahl al-Ilm, those who hold that it must be an international sighting, and they mention the hadith of Muawiyah and the qissa, the story of the affair that took place, and we'll mention perhaps, ikhwan, the story when we come to it in its place. But it is a qissa that revolves around one of the companions of Ramadhaan traveling to the region of Sham, traveling to the region of Syria. And when he reached the region of Syria, those who were present in Syria witnessed and saw the moon during or on a Saturday, on a Friday, on the night of Friday, when the Maghrib of Jumu'ah came upon them, when Jumu'ah, the time of Maghrib came upon them, then they began to fast. And then when that companion, Ridwanullahi alayhim, he came and traveled to Medina, he found that in Medina they had not fasted until the Saturday. And so they continued, as far as the affair of their fast was concerned, then they continued to fast until they completed 30 days. And that is that they were not, or they did not consider the fast of the people of Sham, even though they had seen the moon a day earlier. In Medina, they did not consider their fasting or their witnessing or their sighting of the moon. The scholars differ, though, concerning the occurrence and concerning exactly what was intended by the affair of the sighting. Because at the end of the hadith, the companion, and we'll mention the hadith as we said, the companion, he mentions that this was what we were commanded with. This was what we were commanded with. So the scholars differ. What did he mean by this was what we were commanded with? Did he mean that we were commanded to see the moon ourselves? Or did he mean this was what we were commanded with, that is, to complete the month if we did not see the new moon, the moon of the following month? And this difference that occurs, Ikhwan, is one that, subhanAllah, continues to be an issue of difference and may possibly and will possibly be an issue of difference of opinion until Yawm al-Qiyamah. While the majority of Ahl al-Ilm, and particularly the Muhaqqiqun from among them, the likes of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, held the position, Ikhwan, that if it is witnessed, that is, if the moon is witnessed by one individual, regardless of where they are, then that is sufficient for the month to be considered, and the month of Ramadan to be considered by all of the Muslimun. And that is because of the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Sumu liru'yatihi. Fast, you should fast. The Messenger ﷺ mentioned here Damirul Jama'. That is, you all should fast when you see it. That is, when you see the moon. Ahl mentioned that the address here is an address to the Muslims in general. That you all should fast when you, يعني Muslimun, when you see the month, or when you see the moon. And that then, Ikhwan, is relatively clear in indicating that the affair then is an address to the Muslimun, no one particular Muslim in specific, but to the Muslims in general. And thus those who hold the position that it is based, or that it is sufficient with any of the Muslims seeing it, they work with the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded all of the Muslims with that. Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions in Majmu' al-Fatawa, volume 25, page 114, إذا رأى هلال الصوم وحده أو هلال الفطر وحده فهل عليه أن يصوم برؤية نفسه أو يفطر برؤية نفسه أم لا يصوم ولا يفطر إلا مع الناس على ثلاثة أقوال. This is as it relates to the Muslim himself. Yani, if one Muslim were to see the month, or were to see witness the moon of Ramadan, in the beginning of Ramadan, does he himself fast? Does he himself fast just on the basis of the fact that he saw it, even if the rest of the Muslims are not fasting? Or does he wait wait for all of the Muslims to fast in order to perform the fasting? Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, he said that there are three main positions in that regard. And then he mentions the third position, يصوم مع الناس ويفطر مع الناس وهذا أظهر الأقوال. That is, that they fast together and they break their fast together, and that is the most apparent of those aqwal. A number of years ago, Ikhwan, I remember Allah Azza wa Jal blessed me to get through to Shaykh Fawzan on the issue. Since it is an issue that constantly comes up, Ikhwan, I contacted the Shaykh, Alhamdulillah, Allah Azza wa Jal blessed me to get through to him. And I asked the Shaykh, Ikhwan, concerning whether we should work with a local sighting or an international sighting. Our Shaykh said, Ma alayk. He said, do not look at the issue of local or national, rather you should look at what you as a nation are doing. What are you as a collective doing? And that you work with that which you collectively do. Of course, from Ahl al-Ilm are those who hold that whatever the Muslims in general, across the globe do, then work with that. And of course, Ikhwan, the affair of sighting the moon is a skill. It is not something that any individual is able to do. There is a particular time that one looks for the moon, and there is a skill to detecting the moon. And that which most people see and believe is the new moon of Ramadan is possibly a day, 2 days, or even 3 days old. Because the new moon is extremely thin. And it's as thin as a hair. And so detecting the new moon is a skill, which is why, Ikhwan, the affair of a local sighting is something that we need to be very careful concerning, since it is not something that is easy for any individual to do. It's something, Ikhwan, that requires a skill. In England, ordinarily the people of Sunnah work with the sighting in Saudi Arabia, and that is majorly because of the fact that we have thiqah and we trust the fact that they are skilled in detecting and sighting the moon, and because of the fact that the one who does so generally he is in unison with the bulk of the ummah who fasts along with and utilizes the Mamlaka al-Arabiya Saudiya as the basis of the Muslim ummah generally. And so the ummah then, since many of the Muslimun fast with the sighting that is present in Makkah or in Medina or in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia generally, then you'll find that beginning with them and breaking the fast with them is one, Ikhwan, that will cause you as a community to be in line with the bulk of the Muslims who likewise work with their sighting. It is not a condition, and I'm not advocating that it's a condition that you only work with the sighting in Saudi Arabia, but no doubt, Ikhwan, in terms of safety and in terms of working with a nation that is skilled in detecting the new moon of Ramadan, then in it without that, Ikhwan, is safety. Now, whatever the case is, Ikhwan, the best course of action is that you avoid to the best of your ability ikhtilaf and differing among yourselves in relation to the affair. That you unite upon the most trustworthy issue and you work collectively and as a collective body with that. The Shaykh mentioned, rahimahullah ta'ala, أو إكمال شعبان 30 يوما. Or if one does not see the moon, then you work with the completion of the month of Sha'ban, 30 days. That is, if we are not able to spot the moon, it's cloudy or what have you, then we work with the completion of the month of Sha'ban. And that is, if it is the 29th of Sha'ban, we try to detect the moon. We're unable to detect the moon because it is cloudy, and there is something that obscures our vision, then the Prophet ﷺ, he said that you should complete the month of Sha'ban 30 days. And so if it is not possible for us to detect the moon, then we complete the month of Sha'ban. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentions, وَقَالَ إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَصُومُوا وَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَأَفْطِرُوا فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَأَقْدِرُوا لَهُ. That is, if you see the moon, then fast. And if you see the moon, that is at the end of the month of Ramadan, and the beginning of the new month of Shawwal, then break your fast. But if it is cloudy, then work with an approximation. That is, complete the month of Sha'ban. He mentions, فَأَقْدِرُوا, as occurs in a variant narration, فَأَقْدِرُوا لَهُ ثَلَاثِينَ. That is, make an approximation of 30, يعني 30 days. Complete the month. وفي لفظ فأقبلوا عدة شعبان 30. And as occurs in the third narration, they complete the month of Sha'ban 30 days. So we count 30 days for the month of Sha'ban, and then we consider the following day, the month of Ramadan. He said, وَيُصَامُ بِرُؤْيَةِ عَدْلٍ لِهِلَالِهِ وَلَا يَقْبَلُ فِي بَقِيَّةِ الشُّهُورِ إِلَّا عَدْلًا. He said one works with the testimony of one upright individual, and that is as it relates to Ramadan, but one does not accept as it relates to the rest of the months other than 2 upright witnesses. In that regard, we have the hadith of Ibn Umar, wherein the people, they witnessed the month, and the Prophet ﷺ was informed, as Ibn Umar, he said, أخبرت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أني رأيته. I informed the Prophet ﷺ that I saw it. فأمر بصيامه. He said, that is Abdullah ibn Umar, I informed the Messenger ﷺ that I witnessed the month, me one, by myself. And so the Prophet ﷺ commanded that the month should be fasted. And as occurs in another hadith, he said, نعم قدم أعرابي, as occurs in this hadith, فقال إني رأيت الهلال فقال أتشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأني رسول الله فقال نعم فأمر الناس بالصيام. He said that a Bedouin Arab, he witnessed the month and he approached the Messenger ﷺ and informed him that I have seen the month. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, do you bear witness to La ilaha illallah and that I am the Messenger of Allah? He said, yes. He said, so the Prophet ﷺ commanded the people to fast the month of Ramadan. Now, he said, وَيَجِبُ تَبْيِينُ النِّيَّةِ لِلصِّيَامِ الْفَرْضِ. He said it is for tabyit and niyyah lissiyam al-fard. It is compulsory for one to have the niyyah from the night before for siyam that is fard. Now, so the Prophet ﷺ, as it relates to this mas'ala, this affair, that it is compulsory for a person to have the niyyah for the fasting that is compulsory before the fast itself, yani during the night. There is a hadith in that regard, one hadith in the Sunnah of Imam Abu Dawood, that was declared sahih and authentic by Shaykh al-Albani. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the hadith of Hafsa radiallahu anha. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned, من لم يبيت الصيام من الليل فلا صوم له أو فلا صيام له. It is the Prophet ﷺ, he said that whosoever does not have the niyyah for siyam from the night, yani from the night before, then there is no sawm or no siyam for him. There is no fasting for him. Ahl al-Ilm discuss what is intended by this yani or the biyat, or the statement yabit. What is intended by it? Is it that every single night of Ramadan a person must have the niyyah to fast the month of Ramadan, or is it that the person who fasts suffices with one niyyah in the beginning of Ramadan for the whole of Ramadan? And what is most correct, Ikhwan, is that the one, for example, first and foremost as it relates to the niyyah, when a person has and takes the suhoor meal, him consuming the suhoor meal, even if it is just before Fajr, then his consumption of the suhoor meal is a niyyah to fast. And so that is what suffices a niyyah. It doesn't necessitate that he has to make some utterance or that there are special words that he must say. It is sufficient for him to take the suhoor meal and intend to fast for him to have the niyyah. That is niyyah enough. The other issue though is, as it relates to the whole of Ramadan, is it sufficient for him to have one niyyah, or does he have to have a nightly niyyah? Does he every night have to have a new niyyah for Ramadan and for the following day? And what is most correct, Ikhwan, as the position of the Muhaqqiqun, Shaykh al-Islam and others, is that it is sufficient for a man to have one niyyah at the beginning of Ramadan, and that one niyyah will suffice him for his fast throughout Ramadan. And that is that he has one niyyah to fast the month of Ramadan. The person who begins in the month of Ramadan and has the niyyah to fast, his niyyah, Ikhwan, is not that I'm only going to fast tomorrow, or I'm only going to fast tomorrow on the next day. His niyyah is that Ramadan has begun, so I'm going to fast the month of Ramadan. That is the origin and the asl. And so as long as a person has that niyyah, then that is sufficient for him. That is as it relates to the fard. As it relates to fasting, that is compulsory. As it relates to the fast, Ikhwan, that is supererogatory, then it is not a condition that he has the fast, the niyyah, from the night before. It is permissible and it is acceptable for him to have the niyyah even after Fajr. Even after Fajr. So, a man wakes up in the middle of the day, he decides, I'm going to fast today. I haven't eaten, I haven't consumed anything, so I'm going to complete my fast the rest of the day. Is it permissible for him to do so? Or is it a condition that he has to have the niyyah for the fast from the night before? As far as the affair is concerned, then we have, ikhwan, in that regard, the authentic statement of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, who mentioned, دخل علينا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال هل عندكم شيء؟ قلنا لا. قال فإني إذن صائم. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered upon us in the middle of the day, and he said, do you have anything? Do you have any food to eat? So she said no. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, therefore, or if that is the case, then I am fasting. That is the case, I am fasting. Which indicates then that the niyyah of the Prophet ﷺ was present after Fajr, in the day. Since that was the statement of Aisha radiallahu anha. He entered upon me and said, in the day, and said, do you have anything, and is there any food to eat? Prophet ﷺ said, aside from Aisha, she said no. And so he said, therefore I am fasting. And that then is as it relates to the nawafil fast. So the supererogatory fast, what is most correct, is that it is not a condition that one has the niyyah to fast from before Fajr. It is sufficient that a person after Fajr decides that he's going to fast the rest of his day, as long as he hasn't eaten, as long as he hasn't had anything to drink, as long as he has not had sexual relations, then he may or she may complete the rest of that day's fast. And so, mathalan, a man rises in the morning, he's busy in the morning, and then 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, he sees that until that point he hasn't eaten, he has had nothing to drink, and he hasn't had any relations. And so he looks and says that Fajr is for Maghrib is in a few hours. And so let me be patient, finish the day, complete today's fast, make the niyyah for fasting, complete the day's fast, and receive some reward. Is it permissible for him to do so? No. He may do so even if his niyyah only comes to him at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is permissible for him to complete that day's fast based upon this authentic hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha. Prophet ﷺ entered upon us and said, do you have anything to eat? He said no. And so he said, therefore I am fasting. And that then, ikhwan, is the difference, or one of the differences between supererogatory fast and the compulsory fast. What we'll do then, ikhwan, is that we will have a break at that point. We'll make salah and we'll return after salah, inshallah. Finish one or two make mention of one or two other issues related to fasting and the ahkam of fasting. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa ba'd. Imam rahimahullah ta'ala, he continues, والمريض الذي يتضرر بالصوم والمسافر لهما الفطر والصيام. And that is that the person who is sick is affected by his fasting, or affected by fasting, and the musafir, and the traveling person, it is permissible for them to break their fasts and they should fast. That is to say that they should make their fasts up. As far as the marad is concerned, the person who is ill, scholars categorize sickness into two main categories. You have the marad and that illness that a person expects to recover from. And then we have the marad that an individual does not expect to recover from. Here the Imam is speaking concerning the illness that one expects to recover from, and the person who is a musafir, the one who is upon a journey. Both of those scenarios legitimize breaking the fast for the person who is fasting. So if one is ill, he fears that fasting will increase and intensify his illness, or that will lengthen the period of his illness, then he breaks his fast. Even if he doesn't fear that it is going to lengthen the period of illness, but he is sick and he is poorly, it is permissible for him to break his fast, but with the condition, of course, that he makes his fast up when he is able. In that regard, we have a number of hadith that is as it relates to the effect of fasting while on a journey. As far as fasting while one is sick, or breaking one's fast while one is sick, then we have more than one verse where Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخْرَى. And whosoever is ill or upon a journey, then he may fast a number of other days. And so we have sickness and journey. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions both of those affairs. As far as the journey is concerned, though, then the scholars discuss the mas'ala and the affair of the journey, and whether or not it is better to fast or to break the fast. Since there are a number of ahadith that indicate the companions they journeyed as a group. From them were those who fasted, and from them were those who broke their fast, and none of them spoke ill of each other, which indicates then that they saw that both of those issues were permissible. It was permissible for one to fast on a journey or to break the fast. So it may be, mathalan, that a person journeys and he himself feels that me fasting and continuing with the fast is easy. The journey itself, there is no problem, there is no issue. I won't suffer, I won't feel any ta'ab or any difficulty while I'm on the journey, so I want to continue the fast. Should he and can he continue fasting? Of course he can. While another individual may feel that the journey is difficult, there is hardship within it, and so I wish to break my fast. And so he breaks the fast. But what about the person though that journeys and doesn't have any difficulty in it whatsoever, but he still wishes to break the fast, and by virtue of the fact that he has the allowance afforded to him because he's journeying. So there isn't any difficulty in him fasting, but he chooses not to fast. Does he have the option to break his fast? No. As long as he's upon a journey, then the journey itself is what legitimizes the rukhsah, and not the feeling of ta'ab and difficulty. And that is something, Ikhwan, that Shaykh Islam and others from the Muhaqqiqun discuss. Whenever there is a rukhsah and a permissive an allowance in the Sharia, with the presence of that allowance, then that is sufficient, Ikhwan, to take the allowance, even if one or an individual himself doesn't feel any difficulty in relation to the affair. The presence of the conditions that allow one to take the allowance is sufficient. And so just being upon a journey, even if it is that the journey is not one that is difficult, that alone legitimizes breaking the fast, if one should so choose. Prophet ﷺ on an occasion, these ahadith, ikhwan, from the ahadith that are discussed constantly by Ahl al-Ilm in this mas'ala, hadith of Abi Musa al-Ash'ari and others, the Prophet ﷺ he saw a man who was upon a journey. There was a crowd around the man. The people were giving him shade and trying to cool him down and giving him shade. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ma hada?" He said, "What is this?" And so they responded by saying, Sa'im ya Rasulullah. He's fasting, O Messenger of Allah. So the Prophet ﷺ responded by saying, Laysa min al-bir as-sawmu fi safar. It is not from righteousness to fast while upon a journey. The statement, Laysa min al-bir as-sawmu fi safar, is a statement that the Prophet ﷺ made as it relates to a specific scenario. And that is, a man that had and went through difficulty, the people were over him, and the people were fanning him and trying to cool him, shade him. And it is then not an absolute principle. لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصَّوْمُ فِي السَّفَرِ بِمَعْنَى that it is not righteous in any way, shape or form to fast while one is upon a journey. That is not what is to be understood from that hadith. Here, as I mentioned, it is specific to an individual who finds difficulty fasting when he fasts anyway. He's on a journey, he finds difficulty fasting when he fasts anyway. Here the statement of the Prophet ﷺ comes into play, لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصَّوْمُ فِي السَّفَرِ, that it is not from righteousness to fast while upon a journey. Because of the fact that the companions, they traveled, they journeyed, from them were those who fasted, and from them were those who did not fast, and none of them spoke ill of the other. When we understand that the statement of the Messenger لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصَّوْمُ فِي السَّفَرِ, that it has a specific application, and that is as it relates to the one who has difficulty while upon a journey. And so we have the affair of the person who has difficulty while upon the journey. Here it is said, لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصَّوْمُ فِي السَّفَرِ. But if there is not difficulty, then a person has the khiyar, he has the choice of breaking his fast if he should so choose, and of fasting if he should so choose. In a variant narration though, there is a statement of the Prophet ﷺ, عَلَيْكُمْ بِرُخْصَةِ اللَّهِ الَّتِي رُخِّصَ لَكُمْ, that you should cling to the rukhsah, the allowance of Allah that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given to you. And so on the basis of this hadith, a number of Ahl al-Ilm, and it is, Allah Ta'ala A'lam, the most correct of the positions, a number of Ahl al-Ilm hold that it is better, even if a person doesn't have difficulty, it is better to break the fast as opposed to keeping the fast. Why? The Prophet ﷺ, he said that you should take the rukhsah of Allah, الَّذِي رُخِّصَ لَكُمْ, the rukhsah and the allowance of Allah that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given to you. And so Imam al-Shawkani from among the A'imma mentioned that this statement of the Prophet ﷺ is a command. And the origin concerning the commands of the Messenger ﷺ is that al-amr yaqtadi al-wujub, qaida usuliyya, that the amr of the command necessitates that the thing being commanded is wajib. And so from the A'imma are those who hold that it is wajib to take the rukhsah. Not all of Ahl al-Ilm agree with the premise and with the argument, but the point is the Prophet ﷺ encouraged, cling to the allowance that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given to you. And thus, for the one who does not find difficulty, it is still better for him to take the allowance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, he continues, وَالْحَائِض وَالنُّفَسَاء يَحْرُمُ عَلَيْهِمَا الصِّيَامُ وَعَلَيْهِمَا الْقَضَاءُ. He said that the ha'id, the one who is on her menses, and likewise the nufasa, yani the woman who's going through postnatal bleeding, both of them, it is haram upon them to fast. It is haram upon them to fast. And that is, ikhwan, it is not permissible for the woman who's on her menses or going through postnatal bleeding to fast. So it is not for a woman to say, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going through postnatal bleeding, but I'm able to fast. I don't find any difficulty, I don't find any hardship. The fact that I am going through postnatal bleeding doesn't put me in any difficulty whatsoever. So I'm going to fast. It is haram for a woman to fast while in that state. It is haram for a woman to fast while in that state. وَعَلَيْهِمَا الْقَضَى. that it is upon the two of them to make the fast up. Ikhwan, each of these issues, of course, ordinarily, Ikhwan, time permitting, then we would stop and discuss the adillah, discuss the evidences and what have you, and some of the arguments. But because of the fact that we only have 2 sessions, then we are forced, Ikhwan, to move with relative swiftness through these issues. At least if we're able to grasp some understanding of them, then they formulate a premise for further study, inshallah. Now, so the origin is that the woman who is going through menses or postnatal bleeding, it is not permissible for the two of them to fast. He mentions وَالْحَائِضْ وَالْمُرْضِعْ إِذَا خَافَتَ عَلَى وَلَدَيْهِمَا أَفْطَرَتَا وَقَضَتَا وَأَطْعَمَتَا عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا. That is, that he mentions the woman who is pregnant or breastfeeding, if they fear for their child, then they break the fast and they make the fast up and they feed a poor person per day. Again, they break the fast, they should make the fast up and feed a poor person a day. This is a position, Ikhwan, that there is some difference in opinion among Ahlul Ilm concerning. The woman who breaks her fast because of haid, because of men's afwan, because of pregnancy or breastfeeding, is it upon her only to make the day up, or is it upon her to make the day up and for her to feed a poor person a day? The Imam he mentions, and he holds the position that she feeds a poor person alongside making the day up. While from Ahlul Ilm those who held that the only thing that is upon her is to make the it'am, that is, that she feeds a poor person a day, and that is sufficient for her. And as far as the Salaf of this Ummah is concerned, Ikhwan, in the earlier generations, then that was the position of our Salaf from among the Sahaba. We'll mention some of the narrations in that regard. From that we have the narration of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, who mentioned إِذَا خَافَتْ الْحَائِضْ عَلَى نَفْسِهَا وَالْمُرْضِعْ عَلَى وَلَدِهَا فِي رَمَضَانَ قال يفطران ويطعمان مكان كل يوم مسكينا ولا يقضيان الصوم. That he mentions, if she fears for, the pregnant woman fears for herself during her pregnancy, or the breastfeeding woman fears for her child during Ramadan, then they break the fast and they feed a poor person every day, and they do not make the fast up. And that then was the position of Ibn Abbas. Shaykh Nasir al-Khalil authenticates the narration and mentions that it is sahih upon the shart or upon the condition of Imam Muslim. The statement is one then that is indicative of the fact that the Salaf, or from the Salaf of this Ummah, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he held that the pregnant woman or the breastfeeding woman, she should break her fast, and it is not a necessity that she makes that fast up if she feeds a poor person per day. We similarly have the statement narrated from Sa'id ibn Jubayr from the Tabi'een, who narrates from both Ibn Abbas and from Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, who both said, Al-Hamil wal-Murdi' tuftir wa la taqdi. Tuftir wa la taqdi. That the pregnant woman and the woman who is breastfeeding, then they may break the fast and they do not have to make the fast up. They do not have to make the fast up. We similarly have the narration with the isnad that is Jayyid, the narration of Abdullah ibn Umar, who mentioned أن امرأته سألته عن حبلى فقال أفطري وأطعمي عن كل يوم مسكينا ولا تقضي. That Ibn Umar, his wife asked him concerning her pregnancy, and he commanded her, break your fast, feed a poor person per day, and do not make the fast up. Break the fast, feed a poor person per day, and do not make the fast up. We likewise have the statement of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, who said that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, إن الله وضع عن المسافر شطر الصلاة والصوم عن المسافر وعن المرضع والحبلى. That is, and the hadith is authenticated by Shaykh Nasir in Sunan Nasa'i or Sahih Sunan Nasa'i and elsewhere, and that is the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that indeed Allah has removed or has taken half of the salah away from the traveling person and fasting from the musafir, from the one who travels, and the breastfeeding woman and the woman who is pregnant. Therefore, Ikhwan, the position of the Salaf of this ummah is the breaking, or that the woman who is pregnant or that she is breastfeeding, she breaks the fast and she feeds a poor person per day, and that is sufficient for her. That is sufficient for her. He mentions رحمه الله تعالى والعاجز عن الصوم لكبر أو مرض لا يرجى برؤه فإنه يطعم عن كل يوم مسكينا. He said that the one who is unable to fast because of his age or because of an illness that he does not expect to recover from, then it is permissible for him to feed a poor person per day. Yani that which is sufficient is for him to feed a poor person per day. And that was the case, as we mentioned earlier, Ikhwan, with Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. Anas ibn Malik, when he became elderly, he would break his fast, and each day he would feed a poor person, and the manner in which he would do so is that he would gather 30 poor people at the end of Ramadan, and he would feed them all one large meal. Then he would cook for all of them, gather 30 poor people, and suffice with that. He said, and Shaykh Sa'di, وَمَنْ أَفْتَرَ فَعَلَيْهِ قَضَى فَقَدْ إِذَا كَانَ فِطْرُهُ بِأَكْلٍ أَوْ شِرْبٍ أَوْ قَيْءٍ عَمْدًا أَوْ حِجَامًا. That is, whosoever breaks his fast, then what is upon him is to, that is, if he breaks his fast by eating or drinking or intentional vomiting, or by way of blood cupping, then what is upon him is to make that day up. The one who breaks his fast intentionally, then he has committed a major sin. A kabira min kaba'ir al-dhunub. He is under the threat of the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal. He's carried out a kabira from the major sins, فَعَلَيْهِ التَّوْبَةِ. What is upon him is to make tawbah. That is, if he breaks his fast by way of eating, drinking, or intentional vomiting. Why a person would want to intentionally vomit to break his fast, Allah knows best. Eating and drinking we can understand. But to intentionally vomit, in order to take something from nourishment from that, Allahu A'lam, why a person would wish to do so. But if one did so, then what is upon him is to make tawbah. He has carried out a major sin from the major sins, and he must make that day up. Except the one who breaks his fast due to sexual relations. The one who breaks his fast due to sexual relations, then what is upon him, ikhwan, is to fast شهرين متتابعين. What is upon them is to fast 2 consecutive months. The one who breaks their fast on the basis of sexual relations must fast 2 consecutive months. And that is consecutive. Bima'na, they fast each day without breaking that 2-month fast. Each day is fasted consecutively, day after day. If it is intentionally broken, then they must begin the 2 months min jadid, unless it is broken with an excuse. If one intentionally breaks their consecutive expiation, then they must make that fast up again. They must begin the 2-month consecutive fast again, unless it is broken with an excuse. So the one who journeys, for example, the woman on her menses, the one who has an illness, then now they may break that period because of that legitimate excuse and continue with the 2 months after they after they pass the period of that legitimate excuse. The Shaykh mentions here hijama, by breaking the fast, indicating that his position is that breaking the fast, or that the fast of the one who is blood cupped is broken. And that is the position of one that is held by a number of the people of knowledge. What is most correct, Ikhwan, is that the affair of the blood cupping, breaking the fast, was abrogated after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned Afṭar al-Hājim wal-Mahjūm. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned as a governor, authentic hadith, that the one who is cupped and the one who cups, both of them break their fast. The one who is cupped and the one who cups, both of them break their fast. But it was later abrogated by the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri and others. It was later abrogated by an authentic hadith. Now there is a weak hadith that abrogates the affair, but reliance is not upon the weak hadith of Ja'far. There is another hadith, hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and that authentic hadith is what abrogates the affair of fasting being broken because of cupping. And so what is most correct is that the final affair of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that fasting is not broken by way of cupping. He mentions أو إمناع بمباشرة, or that a person ejaculates because of and due to having relations. As far as the affair of ejaculation due to relations, then it is, as we mentioned, expiated by way of 2 consecutive months fast. He said, إِلَّا مَنْ أَفْطَرَ بِالْجِمَاعِ فَإِنَّهُ يَقْضِي وَيَعْتِقْ رَقَبَهُ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَالصِّيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَإِطْعَامُ 60 مِسْكِينًا. Here he brings detail concerning the one who breaks his fast because of sexual relations. The scholars make a difference between the one who breaks his fast because of mubashara, which is that they have something from intimacy, not actual relations, that is, not penetration. Because the issue with jima' is actual penetration, while mubashara is a reference to intimacy that caused a man to ejaculate, but there was no penetration. If there is no penetration, but they had something from intimacy, then that day is made up and they make tawbah. But if the affair was due to penetration, that they actually had sexual intercourse, then that, ikhwan, is what necessitates the expiation. And that expiation, ikhwan, as we mentioned, is either that one breaks off one, either that a person frees a slave, which is not possible in our time, or that they fast 2 consecutive months. And if a person is not able to do so, then they must feed from 64 people. They must feed 64 people. And that occurred at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when a man, he broke his fast on the basis of having sexual relations. He came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "O Messenger of Allah, I am destroyed." And so the Prophet ﷺ said, "Why?" He said, "I have had relations with my wife in Ramadan." So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Do you find, or are you able to free a slave?" He said, "No, O Messenger of Allah." He said, "Then are you able to fast 2 consecutive months?" He said, "No, O Messenger of Allah." He said, "Then are you able to feed 64 people?" He said, "Verily." He said, "No, O Messenger of Allah." So the Prophet ﷺ, he gave him an amount of food to give out. He said, "Then should I give it, O Messenger of Allah, to a family that is poorer than mine? Because wallahi, there isn't between the 2 borders of Medina a family poorer than my family." So the Messenger of Allah, he said, "Take it and feed it. I'll give it to your family and feed your family." And the Messenger of Allah smiled until his molar teeth could be seen. And so here the Prophet of Allah, even though this individual had relations with his wife, because of his state, he ended up receiving the expiation himself. The point is, the Prophet ﷺ commanded him with these things in succession. Are you able to free a slave? No. Are you able to fast 2 consecutive months? No. Are you able to fast to feed 60 poor people? He said no. And so these things then are carried out in order. Firstly, freeing a slave. Secondly, fasting 2 consecutive months. And if one is unable, due to sickness or what have you, then the affair of feeding 64 people is carried out. He mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من نسي وهو صائم فأكل أو شرب فليتم صومه إنما أطعمه الله وسقاه متفق عليه. He moves on to another issue, and that is the one who forgets while he is fasting and he eats or drinks. He mentions the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, whosoever breaks his fast, or whomsoever forgets while he is fasting and eats or drinks, then he should complete his fast. For indeed it is Allah Azza wa Jalla that has given him to eat or drink. Oftentimes, ikhwan, on the basis of jahl and ignorance, individuals will forget that they are fasting and break their fast with food or drink. And then because of the fact that they have eaten or drunk, that they say, well, since I've now partaken in food, it doesn't make sense finishing the fast, finishing the day, and I might as well just complete the day eating and drinking. And that one is in opposition to this clear text. Prophet ﷺ said, "Man nasiya wa huwa sa'im, fa'akala aw sharib." Whosoever forgets while he is fasting and eats and drinks, فَلْيُتِمْ سَوْمًا, then let him complete his fast. فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاهُ. For indeed it is Allah Azza wa Jalla who has given him food and drink. Nothing is a ni'mah from the ni'mah of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah has blessed him with something from provision, from sustenance. During that day, he eats and drinks, and that is without doubt, if one doesn't affect his fast, and thus is without doubt a ni'mah from the ni'mah of Allah Azza wa Jalla. He moves up to a mas'ala and an issue related to the breaking of the fast. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentions here, as the Imam he mentions, وَقَالَ لَا يَزَالُ النَّاسِ بِخَيْرٍ مَا عَجَّلُوا الْفِطْرَ مُتَّفَقٌ عَلَيْهِ. He said the people will not cease being upon khayr. The people will not cease being upon good as long as they hasten to break their fast. Ikhwan, if only the ummah were to take heed to the likes of these ahadith, and if only they were to reflect upon the reality of what it indicates and what these ahadith suggest. That is, when we delay breaking the fast, that is from the causes of the khair and the good of the ummah be stripped from them. Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يزال الناس بخير. The people will not cease being upon khair, upon good, as long as they hasten to break the fast. And so we say that it is an address particularly to those who rely religiously upon the timetable that has been written as though, ikhwan, it is wahyun min as-sama, as though it is revelation, the timetable was revealed from Allah Azza wa Jal. We cannot break that time. That, brothers and sisters, is from the ajaib. We see the sun setting in front of our very eyes, but the timetable still says there's 7 minutes left. And so we sit down and wait rigidly until the timetable, or the time that is upon the timetable is reached. That is impermissible. That is not permissible for a person to overlook that which Allah Azza wa Jal has laid down as a sabbath and as a cause of the breaking of the fast. Allah Azza wa Jal has made the affair easy for the believers. Fasting begins when Fajr comes about. Our day's fast ends when the sun sets. Even if we are unable to see the setting of the sun, even if we are unable to see the setting of the sun, as occurs, ikhwan, in an authentic narration, on an occasion, the companions, they were on a journey. And the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded someone to look for the sun and the setting of the sun. And so he saw darkness from one side of the sky. And so he said, with the Prophet ﷺ himself, he looked, and he took a look at one side of the sky, he took a look at the other side of the sky, and he said that verily it is time to break the fast. And so the Prophet ﷺ commanded that the fast be broken. So one of the companions, after the Messenger ﷺ said, it is time to break the fast, one of them went and stood on top of his riding beast, climbed on top of his riding beast, and stood up and said, "O Messenger of Allah, I can still see the sun on the other side of the mountain." And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Verily it is time." He took a bowl of gruel, which was a meal that they would prepare, which was resemblant to porridge. He took a bowl of gruel and began to eat from it, and broke his fast, which indicated, ikhwan, that when the sun disappears, the sky becomes dark from one side, from the opposite side, as the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا أَقْبَلَ اللَّيْلُ مِنْ هَا هُنَا. And if إِذَا غَرَبَتِ الشَّمْسُ مِنْ هَا هُنَا وَأَقْبَلَ اللَّيْلُ مِنْ هَا هُنَا فَقَدْ أَفْطَرَ الصَّائِمُ. That if the sun sets from this side, and the night approaches from this side, then indeed the Sa'im, the fasting person, has broken his fast. And the scholars differ concerning the meaning of that statement. Does it mean that even if you haven't eaten, your fast is broken? Or does it mean that it is time to break the fast? From Ahlul-Ilm, those who held that even if one does not eat, then based upon this statement, your fast is already broken. That though is not the correct position, since from the companions were those who practiced al-wisal. That is, that they would continue to fast for a period after the setting of the sun. And if it were that one automatically breaks his fast just on the basis of the disappearance of the sun, then wisal would have no meaning. Though the Messenger ﷺ prohibited and warned against al-wisal, warned against this affair of delaying breaking the fast. And this hadith no doubt makes it very clear that the people will not cease being upon khair as long as they hasten to break the fast. He said, وَقَالَ تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. He said, take the suhoor. فَإِنَّ فِي السُّهُورِ بَرَكَةً, because there is barakah in the suhoor. The affair, ikhwan, of suhoor, first and foremost, as far as it relates to dhabt al-kalima, there is a difference between sahur with fatha and suhoor with dhamma. There is a difference between sahur with fatha and suhoor with dhamma. As far as sahur is concerned, then the sahur is the meal that one uses and that one consumes when he breaks his fast. While suhoor is the act of taking the pre-dawn meal. And that is resembled, ikhwan, to the affair of the term wadu and wudu. Wadu with fatha is the water that is used to make wudu, while wudu is the wudu itself. Tahur and tuhur likewise. Tahur is the water that is used to make, or the pure water that is used to make wudu. Tuhur is the act of purifying oneself. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said that you should take the sahur or suhoor. Sahur or suhoor. Sahur.
Taking the suhoor necessitates that you do suhoor.
The suhoor. Now, the Messenger of Allah mentioned, because in it is barakah. And that, ikhwan, is an indication of the fact that it is not something that we should get into the habit of leaving. Rather, it is in it barakah for the person who fasts. The Messenger of Allah, when he would take his suhoor, he did not take it an hour and a half before the time of Fajr. Again, as is the case with some of these timetables, an hour and a half, 2 hours before Fajr, we have the last time that you should take the suhoor. Al-imsak. Why? Because you got to be careful. You never know. You don't want to get too close to the hour and a half, yakhi, 2 hours, yakhi. Ajib. The Prophet ﷺ, when he took his pre-dawn meal, he did so, as the companions informed us, at a period that is sufficient to recite 30 verses. Some narrations mention 50. 30 verses. The period of time that it took to recite 30 verses, that was the amount of time or the nearness to Fajr that the Prophet ﷺ would take his pre-dawn meal. So he would take it close to the Adhan of Fajr. That is the period or the amount of time it took to recite 30 verses. And so one takes his pre-dawn meal in accordance with the Sunnah, and that is close to Fajr. Fajr itself, ikhwan, is observed not by again looking at the timetable and working with the calculation, but ikhwan, Allah Azza wa Jal has placed the affairs of the Sharia around that which is observed. That which is witnessed by the senses. The beginning of Ramadan is bil-ru'ya, by that which is observed with the eyes. Dhuhr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, all of these times are observed with that which is observed using the senses. Similarly, the affair of Fajr. The Messenger of Allah informed us of the fact that there are two types of Fajr. The Fajr al-Kadhib and the Fajr al-Sadiq. Fajr al-Kadhib is something that occurs prior to Fajr itself. And it is a brightness that occurs and goes up into the sky. Sometimes prior to Fajr actually comes about, there is a brightness and a light that is observed a brightness that appears going upwards into the sky that isn't actually Fajr, though it appears to be Fajr. Then there is a brightness that appears across and spreads across the horizon. When we begin to see the light appearing across the horizon in the direction that the sun would ordinarily rise from, as soon as we see lightness that appears, ikhwan, after dark, then that is the time of Fajr. It is the time that light begins to extend across the horizon. And it is something that is easily observable. And so, if one wishes to know when Fajr is, it is sufficient for him to observe the sky during or in nearness to the time, ikhwan, of Fajr, and not rely upon the timetable and work with the calculations, since Allah Azza wa Jalla has not returned the Sharia back to calculation. Na'am, there are some methods, ikhwan, that are relatively close in terms of observing the Fajr, but the origin is that one should become acquainted with learning how to observe Fajr, learning how to observe Maghrib, learning how to observe Isha, learning how to observe Dhuhr, and these times, ikhwan, which if one was out in a desolate land and you didn't have any timetable, how would you know when it's time to break the fast? How would you know when it's time to start fasting? If there was no timetable and we were stuck out in the open, we were stuck in a desert somewhere, how would you know? Ahlul Sunnah should be acquainted. And they should utilize the observations that are present and the instruction of which is present in the Sunnah, and not rely upon calculations that are usually incorrect anyway. Either that they're too early or they're way too late. And so, ikhwan, we acquaint ourselves with observing Fajr, how it comes in, and knowing that one may continue to eat even after the time of Imsak that is present on the timetable. Imsak, ikhwan, is not, or that time of Imsak is not in any way, shape or form established in the Sunnah. وَأَتَحَدَّى, I dare any individual that claims that Imsak has an origin in the Sharia to give us one shred of evidence that there is something that indicates an hour and a half, 2 hours before Fajr, that you should stop eating. One shred of evidence. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions, فَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. Eat and drink until the white thread becomes clear from the black thread of Fajr. When the verse was initially revealed, the verse, ikhwan, was revealed, فَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ. Eat and drink until the white thread becomes clear from the black thread. And so, Adi ibn Hatim al-Ta'i, radiallahu anhu, he took a white thread and a black thread and sat and would wait until he could see the white thread from the black thread, distinct. And so he informed the Messenger of Allah and he said, indeed, it is not that, O Adi, it is the white thread from the black thread of Fajr. And Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed the rest of the verse, فَقُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. And so that additional part of the verse was revealed, making the affair clear. Which indicates upon the importance of having the Sunnah in our understanding. And that Lugha al-Arabiya alone is not sufficient. Adi ibn Hatim was min afsah al-Arab, and was from the most eloquent of the Arab. The Ta'i tribe exists up until this present time. The Qabila of Ta'i exist, continue to exist. And they are min afsah, and from the most eloquent of the Arab. They exist in the region now of A'il. Even though, ikhwan, he was from the most eloquent of the Arab, that was not sufficient in understanding the ahkam and the rulings of the Sharia. So the Arabic language alone is not sufficient. Oftentimes we're beguiled by someone who's nice and has strong language. Strong Arabic language alone is not sufficient in understanding the Sharia, in understanding the usul of the deen. Na'am, it is from the ulum al-ala. It is from those important sciences that one must know. But it is not sufficient. And so, the white thread from the black thread of Fajr is what one looks towards. When we see that, ikhwan, then it is time to make imsak truly, to stop eating and abandon drink and sexual relations. Mentions rahimahullah ta'ala وقال إذا أفطر أحدكم فليفطر على تمر فإن لم يجد فليفطر على ماء فإنه طهور. That the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when one of you breaks your fast, then let him break his fast ala tamar. Let him break his fast upon dates, and if he does not find that, then he should break his fast with water. And there are some narrations of riwayat that indicate that the Prophet ﷺ would break his fast ala ruqab, that is the soft date. It is the sunnah then that one uses the soft date to break one's fast and not the chewy date. If one is not able to find the soft date, then the chewy date, and if one is not able to find that, then water. And that is what is established in the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, وَقَالَ صلى الله عليه وسلم مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعْ قَوْلَ الزُّورِ وَالْعَمَلُ بِهِ وَالْجَهْلِ فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةٌ أَنْ يَدَعَ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. Prophet ﷺ, he said, whosoever does not leave alone قَوْلَ الزُّورِ وَالْعَمَلُ بِهِ, whosoever doesn't leave alone false statements and acting upon them, then Allah Azza wa Jalla has no need for him to leave alone his food and drink. Does that then mean that the one who has spent his day in false statement, that he doesn't make sense for him to complete his fast because he's broken his fast with the false statements or lying or kadhib? Rather, he completes his fast and he makes tawbah for his false statements. He makes tawbah for that which has come from him, from lahu and from qawl az-zur. Now, he mentions وقال من مات وعليه الصيام صام عنه وليه. Prophet ﷺ, he said that whosoever dies and has fasting upon him, yani whoever passes away and there is fasting upon him, then his wali, that is here wali is a reference to his inheritors, should fast upon or should fast on his behalf. The one who dies and has fast is like, for example, the one who goes on a journey and he's away for 2 days and then he has an accident while upon the journey and passes away. And so that individual, he has 2 days that he didn't fast because of his journey, and then because of the fact that he came or he fell into an accident, that he passed away. Similarly, that individual, an individual, mathalan, is ill. He's sick, and so for a few days in Ramadan, he breaks his fast. And then he continues fasting. And then towards the end of Ramadan, in the last 10 days, he has an accident, something happens with him, and he passes away. And so in the middle of Ramadan, he still had some 5 days that he broke while he was ill. And so the first individual, the one who had 2 days because of a journey, has days of fasting to make up. Second individual, the one who broke his fast because of an illness in the middle of Ramadan, has 5 days to make up. and then he passes away. The one who, either because of a journey or because of this illness, broke his fast, then it is upon his wali, that is upon his inheritor, to make those fasts up on his behalf. It is upon the inheritors to make those fasts up on his behalf. And so they fast the number of days that that individual had to make up. He fasts the number of days that that individual had to make up, and that will suffice the one who was deceased and passes away without making, or before he was able to make those days up. So here we have then the Imam making mention of the major or of the more important issues relating to the compulsory fast, and he ends that section of Kitab al-Siyam with this hadith, that is that whosoever passes away and he has fast to make up, then his wali, his guardian, should make those fasts up. And from tomorrow, inshallah, we continue with the mention of the supererogatory fasts. And so he begins in this section with the fast of the day of Arafah. So we round up inshallah at that point. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. As you mentioned, Ikhwan, the ahkam and the rulings here, we're mentioning them with swiftness, though in actuality, each of these points, Ikhwan, if we were back home and we had time, for example, then we would have discussed them in detail, mentioning the aqwal of the ulama and the tawjih in relation to these affairs. But hopefully, what we mentioned, then we at least lay a premise for future study. جزاكم الله خيرا والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.